Can someone find our CAO? Or, all right. Welcome to the capital and operating budget meeting of, well, not just the only meetings, January 17th, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order at 5:03. And people will see a slightly different angle on the live stream tonight. We have two council members on screen. Deputy Mayor Engel is joining by Google Meets, and as is Councillor North. And I don't see Councillor McCoy is supposed to be joining us by Google Meets, and the other part of that is Councillor Baswick sends his regrets for tonight. So I'm gonna ask administration, first of all, welcome everyone, live stream and in the gallery and with us here tonight. Most anticipated evenings of the year, budget discussions. Ethan, do you have anything to open with?
No, nothing to open with.
Okay. I would take Amanda doesn't then either, being the crafter of the budget. I'm going to start tonight with, we've all had time to look at the budgets, and we've asked some questions that I believe, well, I haven't even looked at my package, I just got it, so let me see what we'll do with this package. So there were a variety of questions submitted. Ethan, could you answer, or are you going to answer verbally to those, or how are we going to answer them?
Yeah, I can speak to that when it's called supplementary information.
Well,
But yeah, you want me to speak to that now?
I think we should, the capital budget questions right now, we can have answered, and then I'm going to go.
We need to.
Yes, we do, I'm sorry. I'm confused and disoriented, just having received this, I don't even know what's in it, so let me look, I'll take a minute.
Well, I can speak to the information there. It's nothing that's new. What we've provided you is basically the information. Everyone's got their budget binders, and then we've also provided you again the RFP information from the December 12th meeting, because basically tonight is just a continuation of the conversation that was started. The budget was presented on November 30th, and then everyone got a very extensive budget binder, and then at the December 12th council meeting, both the capital and the operating budget was formally tabled at those council meetings, and so we've just provided everyone with a printout of those RFPs from that night that has the basic information for that conversation. And really, that's where the conversation left off. So that's what's continuing on. Also included in your information, again, are the slides from the budget presentation that has what we call the shopping list, all the list of kind of additions, budget additions, or service level enhancements that council's considering with those amounts there as well. So that's all there as well. So none of this is new information. It's all just kind of information that's already been discussed and presented. So for your reference. And so for those that are on virtual, that's also all been emailed to them as well for their just review again.
Okay, so the order of events tonight that I had expected, yeah, I know.
I'll move to adopt the agendas. Is that what you would like at this point?
Well, I guess I'm just going to explain what I expected tonight. because I believe because we've all had time to review the capital budget and the operational budget, I was gonna start off with council comments, his general overview. Then I was gonna have the questions that we submitted to administration be answered, and then we were going to go into discussions. So all the questions that were submitted are ready to be answered.
Well, I can speak to that. So we received a bunch of questions. I have a printout of the initial questions with answers to them. Printer wasn't working, and for some reason, so we're having some malfunctions, so I can email this document out to everyone. And well, in the meantime, so we have answers there on that first. We also received, within the last day, some additional questions about the capital budget, as well as some questions about council's budget. We haven't had the opportunity yet to put that information together, but we have this initial information. There was also some questions about year-end actuals as well as payroll actuals. We don't have that yet as well either. Year-end is in the middle of being worked on, and we don't have that information, but we did compile the information that we have from the first batch of questions that came. So, and I have a 3-page document that has that information.
So can you email that right now then?
Yeah,
So we expect that in your email so we know what answers we do have and don't have. So from what you just said then, Ethan, the only questions we won't have answered are the ones that came in this morning,
and yesterday.
last night.
Yeah. And I can speak to, we did have a second, this information that's being sent out is with the first batch of questions that we got. The second was more about, with regards to, just in reference to the comparison that it was recently made to the 2020 budget, which, just as a reminder, was a COVID year. So that budget had been drastically reduced already due to closures.
I'm not sure what you're referencing there.
So there was a follow-up question about salaries and wages and the difference between the budget amount for 2020 as well in comparison to last year's budget of 2023. And then there was just a question about the positions that have been added since then. So the service level enhancements since then has been 7.5 additional positions added due to service level enhancements: a professional planner, a professional economic development officer, a communications person, a professional asset manager, a CPO, 2 public works, and a half clerks. So that was just a question about to explain the difference in salaries and wages from 2020 and 2023. So that part is not on that. So what I just gave verbally is in addition to what I've just said via email.
Well, that wasn't the question, that was my question, but we can talk about that, I guess, the operating budget, since that's when it would fit.
So So the questions related to the capital budget are in that document that I've just sent, attached. So capital budget questions number 1 and 2, have those answers there. And Craig can speak to both of those further over and above what has been provided there as needed.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with people on the screen. Can you hear me well, Deputy Mayor and councilors up there? Okay. So what I'd like to start out with is just any initial thoughts that you'd like to share at this point before we get started in the discussions, and then we'll move forward from there with I have a few suggestions. So do you have any initial thoughts, Deputy Mayor? I'll start with you. No thoughts? Councillor Moore? Councillor McCoy, I see. Welcome. Is your mic on?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. If we're just discussing capital right now? Is that the case?
Yeah, right now, we'll start with capital budget right now, and then,
Okay, so I would like to see the East Reservoir expedited and done as soon as possible.
that's it? That's
Yeah,
enough, but
that's my
thank you.
figure.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Williams.
I have no other comments at this time.
Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. Yes, I as far as the capital budget is concerned, I think that there have been councillors who have expressed concern about overloading the staff with work. And so I would like to see a total focus on the East Reservoir. I would like to see anything that isn't associated with the East Reservoir work removed from the capital budget this year, delay it till later, and there may be some funds that we're going to need out of those capital budgets to facilitate the building of this East Reservoir. I think it is the highest priority. I think that we need to make it the highest priority and delay any potential diversions that ISL or our staff might have because of other projects that we're assigning to them. And I would like to see it very simplified and directly to the East Reservoir and only the East Reservoir projects.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to start with saying that 1.69 or 1.6 million, 1.7 million is certainly the items in the grants and reserves are certainly manageable, and it's not an unusual cost for a capital budget, an annual capital budget. But I think we do need to be mindful of overloading, and my comment is that we be mindful of the catch-up we had last year and the pause on projects so that we could catch up because we had too many assigned out. And I think council was very confident that just having a year of pause with a few major projects is really helpful. And I thank the Department of Infrastructure and Engineering for all their focus last year on getting, we had a really successful year. I do support all the projects needed for the reservoir. I think I agree with the comments about the reservoir. At this point tonight, I wouldn't support anything that needs operating budget transfers because we always need to see where we're at first with the operating budget. And I'd like to suggest that, and Amanda, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to have that small capital, multi-year small capital plan that I don't think we have, that I'm aware of. And I'm just saying because that's your document you would have. But if we have that small equipment capital plan, then we know when these items are coming that we we know have great value to the department, but we can plan for them. So those are my initial thoughts. And having said that, I'd like to start with, I think we can all agree pretty quick, and maybe I'm wrong, but on the must-haves of the capital budget. And then we can get to the other items in the capital budget that people would like to see us move forward. So I would, find the paperwork first. Suggest that the East Reservoir design, the RV sandy dump design, because it's tied to the reservoir, and the 21st Avenue connector, if everybody would or consider agreeing that those are directly linked to the East Reservoir and are must-haves this year to get construction a possibility starting in early 2025. So I'm going to go around the table again, and Deputy Mayor, I'll start with you always. That makes me sure I ask the people on the screen so I don't forget, not that I could forget you all.
So, I don't know, I can't see into council chambers if Craig Fox is in attendance. So one of the questions that has arisen from only doing these 3 projects are, I don't know how much work is involved in design, and I would hate to see our mill and overlay taken off.
Well, I'm just asking, the question is, Deputy Mayor, is if you believe that they're priorities. We're not taking anything off yet, just.
Absolutely, I believe the East Reservoir is a priority, and I believe that this council has already discussed that pretty openly, that is, we are trying to get that done as fast as we can.
So those 3 items I just mentioned are directly linked to the reservoir, and maybe, Craig, you can confirm that for me. That's what I have heard, but the RV sandy dump, the 21st Avenue connector, and the East Reservoir design items are priorities for the reservoir to proceed.
Good evening. Thank you for the question. So the RV sandy dump is more of a proximity project. There's nothing really involved with it that we aren't already doing right next to it. So there's economies of scale to deliver that project simultaneously. It doesn't have to go necessarily, but we'll be working up, cutting the concrete right next to it anyways. So that's part of it in essence, but only because of proximity. But the 21st Avenue connector, yeah, we need a supply line, and then we also need a distribution network installed in through there. So.
And the design value?
Sorry.
Well, there's 125 in for the design too, so I just mentioned that. So those 3 items are linked to the reservoir.
Yeah, so we're asking for the design right now in 24. We're asking for the design of the connector, the sandy dump, and then continuing on, obviously, with the reservoir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I feel better that I was pretty much correct.
Yes.
So, Deputy Mayor, I'll just go back to you just for whatever other comments you might have.
No, that's all the comments I had at this moment.
All right, Councillor McCoy?
No, I think Craig has answered it quite well.
So, do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. And Councillor Moore?
Thank you. I think that we have been very frugal in times past, and I think that I would want a recommendation from administration if any of the things that we have on the current capital budget are things that could be delayed without further degradation in any of these areas. We have taken our debt down to a lower level, so we do have more of a budget to work with than we would have in the past when we didn't have these things paid off. And I think council's done a great job of that. But I think at this point, I wouldn't want to see us neglect the other things that we need to do when we're just in the design stage for the East Reservoir. And I think there's only so much that can be done in that regard. And I would rely on Craig and his department to tell us if they have things that could be delayed, or if we maybe should go ahead with other things, so that when they're in the construction stage rather than design, and they're needed more in that regard, we may not be able to do some of these things. So I would look for their expertise rather than voicing an opinion from my non-expertise position.
So, Councilor Moore, the question was whether or not you agree those 3 items related to the reservoir, we could just get those off the table and prioritize them to move forward. And then we'll discuss all that other stuff.
Yes, I think that we absolutely need to do everything that we can for the East Reservoir. I'm just saying that I don't want to neglect other things, and it depends on how much of the initial work that Craig's department needs to do. I don't know that. Maybe most of it is with the engineers.
And I will get to those questions. You'll have that opportunity.
Okay.
We're going to talk about other things, not just the reservoir. So
Okay.
we'll get around to that. I want to get to Councillor Williams and then Councillor
Okay.
Windsor, I guess your name is.
So we're just talking about the 21st Avenue connector, 23rd Street sanitary main replacement, having those still in the budget. And
We're talking about just prioritizing those East Reservoir items right now, and then we're gonna, so the East Reservoir design item for $125,000. The RV sandy dump, which Craig just mentioned, is more a proximity item, but do the work while we're there. And the 21st Avenue connector for water design.
Sure.
And if we can just get those prioritized, then we can talk about all the other things that council would like to see done this year.
yeah, I believe that would be my priority right now, would be those 3.
Councillor Windsor?
To answer your question, Mayor Hunter, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll just make note of that as would be included in any motions that we have tonight. Now, having said that, I would like our administrative team, with the emails they've just sent, to go through for everybody's purpose the capital budget questions. And I think we just answered them both. Actually, I should say we just did answer, because one question was about the RV sandy dump. Have to be in place prior to 2025 start of the East Reservoir, and Craig's response, it's a proximity item, but it's related to work being done in the area. And the East Disbury Reservoir, well, the next question was, the East Disbury Reservoir is projected to cost $6 million. The RV sandy dump and the 21st Avenue connector total $280, and are part of the project cost of the reservoir. So should we really be identifying that the reservoir is $6.3 million, and are there any other costs that are relative to this total project cost? Can you answer those, Craig? Well, and we should add that design in there too, so that's 6.4. And are there any other costs that are relative to this project that we should be considering this year?
Thank you for those questions. I'll try and answer it best I can. So with respect to the $6 million figure, that was the number that we brought to council because we had a number from 2006 that we've been working with. It was 4.2. Scaling that through time, you end up around 6 million. We didn't know what the number was when we brought the RFD to council for that letter of support, which was what we brought it for. It's sort of like a ballpark number. While we were doing the grant application portion to submit it to the province for the funding. The engineer's estimate came out to 5.6 million for the reservoir to meet the needs of the community. So it's been refined and reduced ever so slightly. And it's an important distinction is that that number applies to just the facility itself, just the reservoir itself. And that's basically because the AMWWP grant that we applied for is just for the reservoir. They don't provide funding for distribution pipes. So in essence, the answer to your question is yes, we could consider it all one project for an internal purpose. But for external purposes, we kind of have to chunk things up a little bit differently. And even if we do consider it all one project and we come up with a project total that encaptures the entire scope, when we go to contracting for tendering and things like that, because of the specialization of going under the CP rails versus the specialization required to build a reservoir, they'd probably be broken up into two different contracts anyway. So that way we'd also be able to manage the delivery times of the projects to ensure one's in place for the next to connect to. That's kind of idea. So.
Okay, I'm just going to ask one more and then I'll go to Jocelyn. The grant, is there a timeline on when we should expect to hear about that?
They stopped taking applications in at the end of November. Provincial budgetary cycle is a March, I think, range. And so I would expect that they'll have some understanding within the next 3 to 6 months for us to know that with. But with a design approval, we'll keep plugging away as fast as we possibly can. And if that money comes through, that can give us maybe a different perspective of a delivery start.
Okay. You may as well stay there since it's all
Yeah.
reservoir. Jocelyn, I don't know how the question.
Hi, I went through the long-term capital plan, and if you take everything that is to do with the East Reservoir and the construction of the Butte Water Tower, it comes closer to 9.2, almost 3 million. So how is that, like, why is that so high, yet you're saying it's 6 million?
I appreciate that question. So again, I just want to sort of emphasize that the reservoir proper has been has been costed separately for all the purposes of the grant application. And then on our multi-year capital plan, we broke it up as the same sort of a scope amount. So the reservoir itself is a $5.6 million facility, but the pipes and the distribution that's necessary to unconnect the reservoir from that location to the existing distribution system, and then to enhance the distribution system to pull the fire flows down into the southeast corner where they're deficient, that process is a multi-year process that doesn't really have anything to do with the reservoir specifically. It has to do with our distribution system. So I guess hopefully that answers your question, I guess.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And can we, I think that, I appreciate your comment, Craig, that there are two different items, and the one we're dealing with for the 2024 budget is the East Reservoir and all the associated costs. And we see going forward, you've answered that it's 5.6, so the $6 million is reflected in the capital budget or the multi-year capital plan. Are there any other questions right now about the reservoir project items? Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'm referring to the email that was provided to us here a little bit ago, and under question 2, about the second last line, it talks about the minor cautionary note that the 5.6 million is design and construction, the 280,000 for design of the connector. In our budget it says 250, and I'm wondering why this one says 280 and this is 250.
Thank you for the question. I think in the question that was posed to me, it was 280, and I didn't go back and check. My apologies. It should be 250.
Thank you.
Or whatever Amanda says.
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the email, the answers in the email.
Because the RV Sandytown was added to that. As 280, 50, 250, and 30.
But all it says is it's 180 for the design of the connector. That's what it's just referring to the connector, not the. not the Sandy Dump design either, are included. It's just the connector. So
My apologies, my answer is not accurate with respect to the 280 and the scope that was included. I had misunderstood.
So I started that, Craig, my apologies to you, since I added the two together. Okay, I think that should be, is that good for the reservoir then? We've got 3 items that we've put on the capital for going forward, and then we'll discuss the rest. And I'm going to, council's going to have the discussion on what items they would like to have added. All the items that were presented by administration, I'm not going to ask them to discuss whether or not they can be deferred at this point. If somebody wants that on there, that's when we would ask them up to see if it would be a priority. And so we'll go project or councillor by councillor, and then the projects that you'd like to see. Or any thoughts on any thoughts on what you wouldn't like to see or what you would? Deputy Mayor, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm just, sorry, trying to work off my phone to read this here, so it's a little bit difficult. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll tell you probably easier for me to tell you what I would like added.
Yeah.
And that would be the MPC member pay, obviously. That needs to be added in.
Well, that's on the operating right now. We're on the capital.
Oh, okay, well, move on, then I gotta get back into it like I said, I'm on my phone here.
Okay. Councillor McCoy, anything on the capital budget you'd like to see?
Sorry about that. Yes, we paid quite a bit of money for this pedestrian trails and pathways analysis. And in there, it recommends that we spend approximately $200,000 a year over the next 10 years to make up for the poor sidewalks. And so I think we should make that happen.
What item are you referring to
What item am I referring to?
on the capital budget?
I'm not, I'm suggesting that the sidewalk be set at the recommended amount that we pay these guys to come up with. And they're recommending 200,000. In the pedestrian master plan.
I know, we're looking at the capital budget presentation, so that's outside of our capital budget that was presented?
I guess it is, because I think it needs to be done, otherwise what was the point of spending all that money on a study?
Well, I'm gonna just suggest right now, we're gonna deal with the current capital plan that we have in front of us. And then, that's a whole other discussion, I believe, when we get to the pedestrian connectivity master plan discussion at a committee of the whole, is where that was deferred.
Which hasn't been approved yet.
It's deferred to the committee of the whole. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, is there anything on the current document that has been presented that you would like to see?
Well, I'd like to see anything that the staff feel needs to be done right away, done.
They presented it to council for our consideration.
Yes,
So, this is a council discussion on capital items we'd like to see on the list or see approved. And so, once we get council's input on what we'd like to proceed with, then I will, if we're taking anything off, I think that's when we ask those questions. But I think right now we discuss with what we'd like to see move forward. So that's what I would like the conversation to be about right now. And then there's other ways to.
So I would like all of them to move forward if possible.
All of them, okay? Councillor Moore?
I said I did bring, this is the one we're talking about, right?
capital plan for 2024.
In our budget document, what I'm holding up is what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Does it say capital plan 2024?
It says proposed 2024 capital budget.
Well, that is exactly what we're talking about.
Good. Okay. Those, I note that the business cases for each one of them made sense, and I think if there's other things that council wants that would be outside of it, but I'm convinced that each of these is the right time for it, and they're getting to be urgent in each in their own case, so I wouldn't want to take anything off of this list.
Okay, Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a question. So under capital budget, 150 for command vehicle, 16 for the RAM, the hydraulic RAM, half of that would be paid by the county under agreement, right? At this time, I just because of how big the East Reservoir is and the costs contributed to the East Reservoir, I would be okay if we moved like the streetlight improvement program to next year, and if we moved the Bobcat attachment to the and dump trailer to next year as well, and take that money and put it towards the East Reservoir. Yeah. So I would be okay with moving the streetlight improvement program design 17th Avenue to 18th Avenue, move that to next year, and the virtual horse server to move that to next year as well, with the Bobcat attachment in the and dump trailer to all move to next year.
Thanks for that. Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. Again, I'm going to reiterate that I don't want to be trying to put anything on the plate that is going to defer attention and focus on the East Reservoir. And so if there are not going to be a deferral to the east, or focus on the East Reservoir, then I would go along with the advanced metering infrastructure system. And I think the command vehicle is a requirement. I think that's a must this year. But I think that would be the only one that I would, I think all the rest of them could be deferred to a time down the road.
Okay. As much as... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Deputy Mayor. Yes, you've got your notes together.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got it pulled up here now. I have to go from email to email, in and out, so
Yeah, that's-
sorry.
No,
I would like to see the 15th Ave mill and overlay done. The advanced metering infrastructure, I think, is very important for us. And if possible, I think that the snowing on the grader is probably important. And if we can move the rest, that would be great, to get them on to our next. But again, I would need to ask administrative response as to, are these things interfering at all with the design phase and the beginning of the construction of the East Reservoir? Like, is there overlap on this? Is there a concern by them?
so can I just phrase that for you, that if it interferes with any progress on the East Reservoir, these projects would be deferred, in your opinion?
Well, no, I would put more on.
Oh, so if the East Reservoir is going to take out that...
Then there, there's one or two more that I think we
Okay.
can undertake. But I agree that we need to focus on these other things. But I don't know if, buying a Harley rake, how that interferes with the construction
So I think you're talking, go ahead, Craig, but you're talking more about the road projects. Would I be right in hearing you that way, Kurt, or Deputy Mayor? Go ahead, Craig. You know what you heard. I don't know what I heard exactly. You can answer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. So, yeah, obviously we understand the importance of the reservoir project, and ISL is working fast on it. Number of variables that are working in play there, but there will be, it's kind of like an ebb and flow when it comes to when you're designing something of this sort of magnitude. There'll be periods where we're really, really busy looking at specs and pumps and valves and picking suppliers for numerous things, but then there'll be times when they'll go away and they'll work for a long time. So the other side of the coin is that we are a little bit more robust nowadays than we've been in years past, and my manager is capable of taking on roadworks projects and managing contracts as well. And so we work together in tandem when we look at a year that's coming up and which one lands best in which ballpark. So we have the capacity to manage roadworks projects while simultaneously moving forward with the reservoir. Things that will take a fair bit of energy, I think, would be pretty much the East Reservoir is going to dominate my time. But the rest of the stuff will be flexible, and we'll be able to backstop one another through the department. So, and like Deputy Mayor mentioned, the vehicles and equipment are relatively simple. We have purchasing connection setups in the province that allow us to go through and just sort of make phone calls. So.
Does that answer your question, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so then again, I would say I would like to see the 15th Ave mill overlay left on, the advanced metering infrastructure, the Valarosa Link pathway design, and the snow wing.
Okay, and I'm going to suggest, thanks for all that, everybody. I put a question to Amanda. $151,000 would be the streetlight improvement program, the hydraulic ram, the VM virtual host server, the Harley rake, the end-dump trailer, and the snow wing. That's all transfers from operations. And what that adds up to is 4.1% increase to the operating budget was the response. And I thank you for that. So my suggestion at this point is to defer any discussions on what can come from operations. And then when we're dealing with the operating budget, those could go on that list of, what's it called, that list? Service level enhancements, I guess, for lack of better, because it's equipment as well. But I'm going to go around the table and ask about that, but I'm going to ask Amanda, the VMware virtual host server. Sounds like we have to have that. So I would not want to take it off. It's going to just, your comment in there was it'll disrupt. It could be disruptive to the system if we went offline with that. So it's kind of a must-have for administrative purposes.
It would be a higher risk asset as it impacts the entire organization if it were to go offline. We do have backup servers. However, this is the last year of the warranty for that server, so in good process, we would just like to get it replaced before the warranty expires.
So with that information, what I would suggest is we defer the streetlight improvement program, the hydraulic ram, the Harley rake, the end-dump trailer, and the snowing attachment, which are all going to be, they're asking for that money to come from operations to capital. So we can talk about that at a later date, because there's nothing there except that server that needs to be renewed. And we could add them at the operating budget discussions. But what you just heard was 4.1%. And if we take off that 18,000 from the VMware virtual host server, then we we go down a little bit. So I'm gonna go around the table and ask everybody if it's okay if we just defer those items that are being transferred from operations and focus on the bigger capital items that are from reserves and grants. And we'll come back to those transfers from operations at our operation budgets discussion. I'm gonna start with Councillor Windsor this time.
Yes.
Councillor Williams?
Like I mentioned earlier, I am okay with some of those being deferred.
All of them for future discussions? Like, it doesn't mean we're not gonna do them, it just
Yeah,
means
yeah,
for
since
future
they-
discussions.
We don't know.
Then we'll focus on
Yeah.
the big capital tonight.
I can do with that.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, just clarification on the 15th Ave mill and overlay CCDF. It doesn't say where it's funded from. Is that a reserve or a grant?
That's the Community Building Fund. It used to be the GTF. It's a grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be remaining on.
I know, but are you okay with taking those
Yes.
up, deferring those operations items?
Yes.
And then you have anything else to add while you were talking? No? Are you good?
Sorry, I missed the last thing you said. Also doing.
Well, no, just deferring all those transfers from operations except for that VM virtual host server at this point.
Yes. Yeah, we'll discuss these at a later date. That's fine with that.
Okay. Councillor McCoy?
I'm good with that.
Councillor Moore?
Yes, it doesn't matter to me when we discuss them.
Okay, thank you. So let's go for the big items. Let's see what we can get done that way. So,
Mayor, can we have that in motions, just so?
we will.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll catch the motions, yeah. Well, I don't think we have to defer any, like, we don't have to have a motion to defer anything. We'll have motions what we accept tonight, and then we'll carry on with
Just so
other
it's
discussions.
Clear to us what exactly.
Yeah. And just so everybody understands, and Councillor Windsor did make the motion to accept the agenda. And I think everybody was in favor. So, it's been my apologies to
Delay vote.
Roger's Rule book. So let's go, is there anybody that would like to add I'd like to see, I like to see the road projects too, and they are covered by grants, and I think if I were to add, I would agree with the 20th Avenue mill and overlay. I would agree with co-op service works. I would agree with the 23rd Street sanitary main replacement, and I'm going to ask Craig a question on that. And the advanced metering infrastructure system. So the only question I have about that is the 23rd Street sanitary main. We've already deferred that once from last year's budget. And so I'm going to interpret it as getting to be kind of a priority. Or can it go another 1 or 2 years? I don't want to see anything fail because of our deferrals.
Yeah, so it's hard to tell. So like when a situation like this becomes apparent to us, we respond to it, and we did our best to make sure it remains operational, and we'll continue to do that. But yeah, the pipe has a sag in it. It's not going to get any better. It will continue to deteriorate. We could push it another year, but ultimately the risk we run is it fails and we're in an emergency repair in the middle of -30, and kind of that's sort of how it's one of those operational situations that we're aware of, and yeah, ultimately it has to be repaired.
Yeah, so thanks for that. So I'll just repeat those again. 20th Avenue mill overlay, and Councillor Deputy Mayor already said the 15th Avenue. So 20th Avenue mill and overlay, the co-op service works. And I know this is a lot of work, so I think when we decide what roads we might have to prioritize, but the 15th Avenue Mill and Overlay, advanced metering infrastructure, and the 23rd Street sanitary main. And I'd like, you know, with all the numbers that Amanda gave us too on the grants and reserves we have, how all these items are impacting them. We also have an extra $250,000 to add to that, I believe, Amanda, because of the MSI, well, 813 minus 540, what is that? You would know. But we did get a bump in MSI capital and double MSI operating. So MSI operating fund goes into the MSI grant fund as a whole. Yeah.
So to address your questions about the grants, the MSI operating of 345,000, that's already represented in this version of the budget. So there would be no additional money for that. It wouldn't go in these capital grants funds. It's spent on operating budget in the year that we receive it. And for capital, I believe originally we estimated what it would be in the budget documents, but when it came out to 813, so yes, there's an additional, no, I can't do math like that on the top of my head.
It's an additional 260 in capital, because it was 813 and we were anticipating 540. So it's about 250,000 extra. So my point is that those grants are healthy compared to what we anticipated, and that's why I would support those projects. But I don't want to have 8 road projects or 5 that would overload our department. So any thoughts on that? And I'll again start, I'm going to start with Councillor Williams on those 5. I think I identified 5 there.
Yeah, you identified 20 Avenue,
Yeah.
15th Avenue, Co-op, advanced metering, right?
Yeah, and the 23rd Street sanitary main.
So I have a couple questions. With the advanced metering, it says that's gonna be 250 by reserve. Could we fund that actually by MSI if we happen, if the problems sake give us an extra 200?
For what was that?
Advanced metering.
Okay. I'm just gonna find where you're looking. So that's out of those water and wastewater reserves that we
Yeah.
keep for those purposes.
Is it possible to use the extra money from MSI to pay for that? Then use the 250 for reserve for reservoir next year?
Okay, Amanda, do you want to answer that?
Sure.
I think, yeah.
Yes, that project likely would qualify for those grant monies. However, the reserves that it's coming from are generated through our utility charges, and so that wouldn't have an impact on taxes in any ways.
Another question for Craig. Is he confident we can get all these projects done?
Thank you for the question. Obviously, we always try and balance when we're looking forward what we can conceivably accomplish. And so the way I've broken this one down is something similar to how you guys are looking at the East Reservoir now. I've got one project. Yeah, it's got multiple names and it's going to do different things, but it is one project, and I'm comfortable with where we're at on that one. The roadworks projects, if approved all together tonight in one form or fashion, or in part of it or whatever, I'll contact ISL. We'll have them prepare the tender. We'll go out to market with them. They'll do the construction management, so that it just sort of takes my team to administer that side of things. So it's more of an administrative paperwork thing, and making sure the contractor understands the scope of them, their limits and stuff. So it's not really burdensome, and we can manage that through our day-to-day. And again, like the vehicles and things like that are pretty quick purchases because of the provincial purchasing program that they have set up for us. So realistically, then the rest of them is just sort of design, like the Valarosa link and things like that. It'll take some energy to get them done, but I think they're within what we have capacity for.
So we do have the Valrosa link in there as well from Deputy Mayor.
So with that being said, I'm good with having all that infrastructure. The only thing that I'm not okay with it would be the streetlight improvement, but I believe that we have pushed that off to a later discussion since that's been operations.
Go ahead, Amanda.
May I just also note that as I'm looking at this proposed capital budget document, if you look at the 23rd Street sanitary main replacement, it's showing on the page 7 of the budget document that it's being funded by MSI. However, further down, it's showing coming out of the wastewater reserves. It would be the wastewater reserves that I recommend that being funded from. So I just wanted to note that, because if you do approve that project, I would suggest that it comes from those reserves.
Where is it? I'm looking at these funding sources pages.
So on the funding sources pages, it's in the right spot under wastewater reserves.
Okay.
But on the front page of the capital budget, with the proposed 2024 capital budget, it shows the 85,000 coming from MSI/LGFF, which it just got put into the wrong column there.
Okay. So it's right on the document, so. Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Absolutely in favor of doing those. If we can get them all done, Craig sounds comfortable with doing them, so I would absolutely favor those.
Okay, Councillor Windsor, I skipped you there.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'm not going to sound like a broken record here, but I have a question with regard to these projects and mainly the roads. And Craig indicated that ISL would be doing the RFD, and therefore wondering if the focus of ISL then is away from the project of the East Reservoir in order to do those RFDs. And we're 6 months into the design now, and so yeah.
Okay. Into position? Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. So ISL has a fairly broad team, so they have offices all across the province, and their construction management team is different from their design team. So they're different arms of the same body, I guess, but they don't really have a direct correlation to one another. The only correlation would be Jeff, who you met, would be my counterpart. So him and I would manage the projects and the contracts and the design of all these different projects together.
So again, I'm just going to say I'm not in favor of anything that's going to take the focus away from the East Reservoir.
I think we all agree with that. That the priority is the East Reservoir, and I think what I'd like to suggest is if Craig doesn't feel they could take that on, he would tell us that. And if it would get too overwhelming, Craig, I would interpret that you would come back and ask for deferral for those items. That's just what I would interpret would happen. And I guess to confirm further that the focus is on the East Reservoir. And
Yeah, I didn't really get a question out of there, but just maybe take an opportunity to just provide a little bit of comfort. When it comes to design, if we wanted to expedite and we asked ISL to expedite, they would pull and prioritize their internal systems to enable that, and they might pull from BC, they might pull from, so they have capacity, they have horsepower, they will go as fast as we ask them to on pretty much any project. If we find ourselves in, let's say, September or something like that, and we haven't started the Valarosa Link project, when we're doing our project updates, I would hope that and anticipate that you guys would put me on the seat and ask me what the heck I'm up to and when you can expect to see some progress on that one. And I'm always open and honest with you guys on how we're progressing on different things. And if I get a suspicion that we're not going to be able to meet your expectations, I'll let you know.
Thanks for that.
Does that work?
Councilor Windsor, does that answer your questions? And then, well, after this, we go around this, I think we'll come to a big question for Craig that might put things to rest. Councilor Moore, those items, those 6 items, are you okay with those for now?
I'm actually concerned with wanting to defer projects for a year or two when we will be full tilt into East Reservoir construction. This would be a better year to accomplish some of these things that are going to need to be done anyway. So I'm concerned about wanting to defer them to years when we will be far more busy and overwhelmed than we could possibly be in this year. So I'd like to do as many of them as possible while ISL is doing the design, so that we then will have them done when our staff is so busy with the East Reservoir. So all of us want to expedite the East Reservoir, but I think doing the things that we can do now before we're into that is helping to accomplish that.
All right, Councilor McCoy?
I have a concern about the 20th Avenue mill and overlay. It was identified a long time ago as not being, the underground, like, infrastructure, as not being good. And there was talk long before me about lining it and etc. But additionally, if we're just going to pave mill and overlay 20th Street or 20th Avenue from 20th Street to 21st Street, I don't think they're doing the rest because they've done a lot of pothole work in the last recent years. But then if you look at the multi-year capital plan, it shows that 20th Avenue from 20th Street to 23rd Street is having surface work and beautification design work done in 2029 to the tune of $225,000. Why would we do surface again? And why? I'm really wary about putting money into, getting your hair done when your brain's gone, like, so to speak. Like, I think we need to be careful because that was identified a long time ago as it's some of the oldest infrastructure in town. And I'm not okay with putting pavement down on top of what could be problematic.
Do you have a question there?
I guess, it was stated in the write-up for it that the department has not identified any abnormal risks. What about tree roots and collapsing deep surfaces and the fact that it was assessed as in very poor condition years ago?
Go ahead, Craig.
So thank you for the question. So I think it was identified as being a street of interest back when. So we have been trying to solve the distribution network system since we've identified the distribution network system has issues. And part of that was historically we were trying to solve it with two reservoirs in 2 different locations while also trying to increase the flow across the CP rail tracks. And so part of that was to get the flow directly from the butte through the CP rail tracks under 20th Avenue. So that corridor in front of the post office was intended to be a large main that would go from east to west to carry the flows across the CP rail tracks, as well as that east reservoir down in the southeast would then supply the fire flows to its local area, but our predominant reservoir would still be the Butte. So that was the intent, the philosophy, the high-level master plan, I guess you would call it, back then. I think these services were planned to be replaced, but then they ran into some issues with insurance with respect to some of the heritage buildings. And so that project got a little bit bogged down, and that never went forward. So, but you can fast forward 10 years, I think, at this point in time, and we haven't experienced any failures of the infrastructure underneath that road. So we combine that with the fact that now we've chosen a different location for a reservoir, which has completely changed the master plan and the distribution network system that was going to go to east to west. So now we're going east to west through 21st Avenue, and we'll be taking a large main down 21st Avenue to 21st Street. And then we'll be coming south and we'll be connecting back into that 20th Avenue main pipe that comes down from the Butte. So that'll give us our bridge and light up our network from east to west. And that happens over the course of, so the 21st connector gets us to the west side, and then there's a 21st extension that you'll see on the multi-year capital plan, which takes it from 20th Street to 21st Street. So that will be that second leg, which then connects the two networks together in a true fashion. It'll be connected through we do have multiple connections across the CP rail tracks, so in the interim we will be connected, but we will still be deficient in being able to connect the two reservoir, or the two distribution sides of our town thoroughly. So that's a lot of words, and I'm sorry for that. It's complex, but ultimately, because we've reevaluated the master plan for how the town will be serviced from a reservoir that was never once contemplated, we're doing things a little bit differently. And then because of that, 20th Street in front of the post office, even if it did have the odd issue that we were aware of, is still a proper candidate for a mill and overlay, just based on the fact that we won't be getting into the deep services in that street in the next 10 years. Not conceivably, given the distribution network challenges that we still have to resolve. Does that help?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Craig.
You're welcome.
That is a lot of information that you did very good at. Thank you for that. You've been studying the map today.
That's all I do.
Every day. Thank you. So we have 6 items we can move forward with in the motion as well. And let's just get back to the list. Oh, I know what the question was, and I should have had you stay there, Craig, because the word expedite has come up quite a bit tonight. Expedite the East Reservoir. And I guess, what would that mean to you, Craig? And how would that move forward the construction time? And what would that take? Just, I'm gonna ask council if they're interested in that to either get the answer going forward or to lay it, like, carry on as planned.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So expediting is possible. Like I say, ISL has asked me if we needed to push the gas pedal and go faster and dedicate more resources. Part of why that green light hasn't been given, I think, is because don't really feel like I've been given that mandate yet. I think a motion green lighting the project for construction would be a big step, but also not too far, because we do have the regional water line that has to begin design and construction to feed the reservoir. And they would have a process of theirs that needs to kick off once we make a definitive motion to move forward. So we haven't been able to kick that off with a design commitment, but a full commitment from council to move forward with the project in principle, with funding to be determined, or however you feel comfortable with phrasing that, would give the department the ability to approach the commission, get that moving forward, and we can always ask ISL to expedite to the best of their abilities and give me an updated schedule on what that might look like, and if there's any cost implications, and I could bring that back to you if you wished. On the other side, the grant is something that we won't know about just yet. So if we do green light it, it would be under the understanding that we'd be moving forward a loan idea with the hope that the grants come through. But
Thank you for that.
you're welcome.
Councillor Windsor, any questions to Craig on that?
Just a question on that. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but was Craig suggesting that if we don't get the grant, we're not going ahead with this? No?
You can't suggest that, because you wouldn't
So
suggest that.
I guess then, yeah, his last statement about the grant and yeah, I'd like clarification on that, as to what exactly he was meaning when he said that.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, no, it's not, I guess I was just trying to be cautionary that a motion to move forward with the project would have to be under the understanding that if the grant didn't come through, then the funding would be solely on the town. That was all I was getting at.
No, nothing from your three folks? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Joyce, or Councillor McCoy. I'm sorry, pretty casual tonight.
No worries. Yeah, just, I think if the grant doesn't come through, we should be looking at borrowing the money. I don't think we can drag this out any longer.
Okay, so I'm gonna go around the table then, if everybody is agreeing to have a motion made to expedite the process. Expedite East Reservoir project, based on what Craig has just mentioned, and then obviously the process would come back. But to expedite that, give Craig that authority to go forward, or give administration that authority to go forward, and it's not just obviously Craig. Apologize to all of you sitting there. So I'm gonna start with Deputy Mayor. Would you agree to support expediting the East Reservoir project?
Yes.
Councillor McCoy?
Yes?
Councillor Moore?
Just want to ask first if expediting necessarily means that we incur extra costs. Like, are they expediting it unless they ask us for more resources at ISL? And the other thing is there anything about the grant that if we go ahead, are we foregoing or affecting our eligibility for the grant at all? And it would be yes, as long as we know if there's any consequences from our doing so.
You should just stay there, Craig. I think it's probably better.
Getting my steps in. I'm going to answer the last question first, just because it's the one I remember the most. I'm not sure, and I'll have to look into whether or not, if we move forward with engineering, whether those costs would be solely, because some grants only start with, like, after they've given okay, then you can start spending money. So I'll have to double check on that. That's a really good point. And if you wouldn't mind refreshing me with the first question.
Sorry, the first one was if expediting it at ISL means extra costs necessarily, or just that they would hurry up and it won't be extra cost.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I think the word expediting or the motion might just be better suited to approve the project, and then you give me the stern direction to move forward with expeditiousness and come back with anything that might be out of line with what we currently know as the costs. So if I proceed and I go to ISL and I say, okay, we're hitting the gas pedal, so as fast as you can, what's the cost difference? And he says it's $50,000, I'll come back to you and I'll let you know that. I don't expect that to be the case. We can move things differently sometimes and still get things done quicker without costing much more money. So
They don't have an expedited fee schedule.
I hope not. No. If they do, they've never given it to me. So
Right,
yeah.
it's the same way.
Thank you. So my answer is yes.
Okay. Councillor Windsor.
Yes.
Yes.
So you go over there and write that motion as to what you'd like us to say, so we get it right. I don't think we want to wait 2 weeks every time if you need it to move forward on things. And thanks everybody for that, so we'll bring that out as well. And now I'm just gonna, I'll go through the rest that we have. The playground replacement program that is reserves, I believe. I had that wrote somewhere. JD Moore replacement, which is reserves. The command vehicle, that's also on the fee schedule. I think it's already ordered, isn't it? No, but that's reserves. And I think there's just 3 items left then that aren't asking to come out of operating. So, does everyone agree with those items? And I'm just going to confirm. So, Nicole, playground, JD Moore are all reserves. I'm not looking at it. I could look at my document, but you can answer quicker. I thought I had it wrote down.
Those, the reserve is the vehicle and equipment replacement reserve. That's where they would both be funded from.
And then the fire department command vehicle, that's a shared project with the county. So I'm gonna let Deputy Mayor start again on those 3. Everybody okay moving forward with those?
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor McCoy,
Yes,
Councillor Williams,
Yes.
Councillor Windsor.
I indicated initially that I was in favor of the command vehicle.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I had that written down.
and I can live with those others.
Okay. All right. So that, I think, covers the capital for tonight. And I think we should make the capital, what we'll do is we'll make the motions for the capital, and then we'll take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and resume the operating budget discussion. Does that suit everybody? Okay. So the motion will include everything except the expeditious fee schedule. You're looking at me because you'd like to make that motion, or you have a question?
Well, I guess that was my question, is that are we gonna separate the East Reservoir out from the rest of them? And if we are, then has Craig been able to pen that for us so that we have it the way that it needs to be worded properly?
Well, I think we'll start with that motion about the East Reservoir and expediting it. And then we'll go to the 3 items that are relative to the, a separate motion for the 3 items for the East Reservoir, and then have the other motions. But we want them to all have one total, I guess. So,
You want to be playful in
Put them on one motion.
yeah, I'm just trying to, just because the East Reservoir, we place it as our highest priority, I guess, is what we're saying, the reservoir, and those 3 items would be the highest priority, so maybe the Co-op Road might not get as high, won't get as high a priority for attention, but that's up to Craig to sort out when it's done. So we'll do the East Reservoir, and then we'll do the rest. I think Craig
I'm here to
heard
help.
about the East Reservoir motions. So you have something that you'd like to suggest for the first part of this?
Yeah, I guess it would be a bit of a dialogue back and forth of how you guys would like to frame it. But yeah, I don't know if expediting really I understand we're gonna expedite it, but I think just approving the project, with funding to be determined, something to that effect, but approving the project to move forward, without delineating between design or tender or construction, just to approve the East Reservoir project, and then I can probably kick everything from there.
All right, so who would like to make that?
Subject to finance and CAOs.
Yeah, all of that will, I mean, approve the project and again, report back when all that information, as soon as that information's available. So the information on the grant and the information on the costing, or if ISL is gonna be more expensive with a different fee schedule, and that those things will come as soon as they are available. Who has a question? Oh, Councillor Moore?
No, I wanted to make the motion that we move forward with the East Reservoir project.
Okay, I think we need a friendly amendment to that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Hunter. I think we need to include the amount in that, so, and which three things make up the East Reservoir project. So it's $405,000. And it's the East Reservoir design, the RV Sandy Station design, and the 21st Avenue connector.
Well, that's a different motion. We're just doing the project now, the actual project of the East Reservoir, and then those other three.
Okay, the project?
No, it's East Reservoir that we're talking about. Well, you're saying the supplementary items. Craig, go ahead.
Well, I guess it's council's discretion. If you wanted to approve the scope, which includes the RV Sandy down the 21st connector and the East Reservoir, as long as the East Reservoir is indicated in that motion, I can use that to kick off the commission conversations and things like that. I'd be comfortable with.
But I think what we're after here is that the capital budget's gonna be approved with these items, and that would include the East Reservoir items. So we generally approve the capital budget as one number with those items in it. And
Excuse me, does Craig need that motion though for him to be able to move forward separately?
yes, we're just trying to sort out what, I think we just need the motion on the reservoir first, and if there's any, and to add to that Craig reports back as soon as any information is available relative to the project.
I would
Amanda?
add that, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, not to be contradictory to my colleagues. However, I just would caution us approving a project without knowing where the funding is coming from, especially if there's a debt component to this. Council will have to go through the motions of approving the borrowing bylaw and whatnot. So I don't know if there's a way to make the motion to move forward on these items as quickly as possible, and then to bring back the funding or proposed funding.
That's fair, like, when we're talking about those three prioritized projects with the reservoir, and then have it brought back about what you just said, all the funding. Because there's debenture, there's reserve, there's grant, so yes, thanks for that. But it's just part, understanding that we want it moved ahead as quickly as we have the information. So what would you like to add to that then to help us along? Because I agree that those comments are important.
Well, I think that we should have a conversation with what percentage you want debt funded versus how much you want us to put reserves towards the project, because we can bring reserves into play. We just haven't considered those yet. So and the grant the outstanding grant is a big question mark, because we'd have to find a lot more funding if that grant isn't approved. So I don't know.
Well, maybe we could approve those three items, and then we can discuss this further at the January 23rd meeting. Maybe we'll have more information then. Well, we know when maybe the grant information was gonna be available. And we know if we don't get it, what the options are.
Yeah, or we could bring scenarios too.
Yes.
With the grant funding, this is how we could fund it. Without the grant funding, these are our options.
Yeah, I'm just letting Amanda complete her conversation. So I think we'll move to that discussion we'll have a motion to bring that to RCM on January 23rd. And then Councilor McCoy, you have a question?
So just to clarify, I just got a little bit confused. We're only moving certain parts forward? We're only doing 3 things? We're not going to expedite the entire project?
Well, Amanda just suggested that we need more information before we can expedite the project because it's all got to do with finances, debenture reserves, and grants. And so we
Right.
need more information.
So, but before she spoke, I thought I heard that there was only 3 things going forward. I thought we were expediting the entire project. And I understand what Amanda's saying.
Well, because the 3 items that we identified for the East Reservoir are on our capital budget presentation right now, they're gonna be approved as a 2024 capital budget items.
Right.
And those 3 East Reservoir projects are highest priority. But the whole capital budget is gonna be a motion, and then the reservoir project itself will go to January 23rd RCM so that we have the correct information and motion and the scenarios.
Oh, got you. Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, who's gonna add up all those items then for cost?
Actually, since it was my motion at the beginning, I would like to ask how, if we cannot, there's no way we're gonna have all the numbers and details and everything at this point. Is there not a motion for us to move toward, everything that we need to do toward the East Reservoir project without having all of the implications of that at this point, so that Craig can get on with getting it started?
Okay,
That's what I would like my motion to be.
I know, and so your last motion, you're fine with withdrawing that? And then,
If
we're
Craig
set,
has another one that would move.
Well, I'll
then
tell you what
allow
it
him
is.
to move forward.
I'll tell you what it is.
I'll calm down on whether it's this item or that item.
Okay, we're gonna move it to the January 23rd meeting as the motion that we need, and have Amanda bring back whatever information she has available, like scenarios, grant information on when we could expect to hear about the grant, just all the information, and then we can have a conversation about that with more information in front of us.
So we can't do anything with it now?
No.
Okay, I'll withdraw.
Well, that's based on Amanda's good advice.
Okay.
We can't make motions without finances in front of us, and I
No,
appreciate those
I
comments.
appreciate good advice, but I think Craig needs something to be able to say something to ISL.
They're still moving forward with this.
Yeah, they're
We're
still working on it. They are working on it, so it'll just be
Okay,
what's
Craig
tonight,
is ready with
Wednesday?
that. I'll be happy to move it.
Okay, so we'll make the motion about the capital items, and then we'll make the motion about the East Reservoir project coming back January 23rd and the information that will be brought with it, or hopefully can be brought with it. Is everybody, so do you have a motion, or you have another question?
No, I can do a motion if you'd like.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'll move that council approve, and do I have to list them all? The following portions of the capital budget. The 20th Avenue Mill and Overlay, 15th Avenue Mill and Overlay.
Start out with the reservoir stuff
You want to put them at the top?
at the top.
Okay. So the East Reservoir design, the RV Sani dump design, 21st Avenue connector, the water design, then the 20th Avenue mill and overlay, the 15th Avenue mill and overlay, Co-op Road surface works, advanced metering infrastructure system, 23rd sanitary main replacement, the Valarosa link pathway design, the playground replacement program, the J.D. Moore replacement, and the the Disbury Fire Department command vehicle for a total of $1,558,000.
Should we double check that number?
Yes.
Okay. That was good. Wow. Did you send that to him in a text?
No, you didn't.
Okay. So we have the motion for the 2024 capital budget items to move forward with and approve. Any other questions or comments? Call the vote. All in favor? Oh, you have a question, Councillor Moore? I don't know.
Yes, I noticed that the train station flooring was not included in that.
Yes, because we all agreed to defer anything coming from operations till the operation.
Okay, so that comes partially from operations. Okay, I understand why. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else? Call the vote then, all in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Moore wants to make the motion to bring back the reservoir project construction, or the reservoir project itself. And Amanda, can you give us the information that you suggested you would come back with? That would be relative to all our finances of that.
I think we should come back with two options for funding it, whether we get the AMWWP grant or whether we do not, and how we would fund both of those scenarios. And then also possibly, if we can get it that quickly, just the implications of spending money before your grant is approved for that same grant, just so we're aware.
Yeah, like with the following questions answered. Implications of a grant. Proceeding without the grant being approved. So does that have to be in the motion, or, okay. So Councillor Moore to move to approve the the East Reservoir project to come back with information on two scenarios of financing for council review and recommendation.
Yes, I would move that.
To the January 23rd, 2024 council meeting.
Right.
You probably got that, Luana? In the right order? Do you want to say it for me then? It's a big one.
Yeah, moved by Councillor Moore to approve the East Reservoir project to come back with implications of financing to the January 23rd, 2024 regular council meeting.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? Call the vote then, all in favor? That's carried. All right, and I'll call for a 10-minute recess, come back at 6:45. We'll start the operating budget. Thanks, everybody. we're ready, if those don't want to use that word folks, it's like overused. If our counselors are, oh, there they are. They just, all right. So we're gonna dive into the operating budget, and we're gonna start much the same as, if any opening comments or thoughts. Just gets off to a good start, so I'm gonna start again with Deputy Mayor. Any opening comments or thoughts?
I may have some as we move along here, but right now I'm okay.
Okay. Councillor Moore?
I'm also good with just moving along. I really like the way they did it this time.
Councillor McCoy?
Say, I might have questions as we go through.
Yeah.
Nothing overall.
Councillor Williams?
I do have a question. So we're going on, I have November 30th on the draft 1 of the operating budget. However, it does not include the increase in the intern revenue in the police grant revenue. Is there a different draft budget? The increase?
Well, the one, I was gonna get to that after, that's a good question. We'll keep that,
Okay.
because I was gonna bring that up, but by all means, I had some information there, and then there's another question. Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'm pleased with the way it is right now, but I think there's some tweaks that need to be done, and we'll discuss those as we go along.
Yes. Okay, because some of the questions, well, one of the questions that I asked was about the increase to salaries, and that was broke down. And adding the intern back in that was missed, it brings down the 1.2% increase to 0.5% increase according to Amanda's response. And then you had something about policing.
Yeah. Sorry, Mayor. I don't remember the exact date when we got the letter from the minister, but didn't he say increase of $2,000 in the police grant? I believe that was back in December that we got that.
Anything on the police grant?
I don't recall that off the top of my head. I'd have to look at my
I
notes.
don't either. So, if everybody had a chance to read the questions, there was an overview of the courses and training that is taken. I think I asked it at the last meeting, but I just asked again on paper, so we had the answer that the professional services budget can be reduced to $10,000 and drop that 7 because there's nothing planned, no specific plans for that item. And then there were questions on lagoon treatment, just the costing outside of the $250,000 in the wastewater budget. And then line by line, and I don't know that I still understand that, because it changed last year, maybe you answered this too last year, Amanda.
Is taking those costs and allocating it out to each department so we can ensure that those departments are fully, properly costed. So where it matters is we say pay for themselves, like the utility departments, are captured in there, and other costs related to having a communications department location. And if you were to add them all up, they net out to 0.
Thanks for that, and thanks for all those answers. Where we start, and I guess we can start with that 7. I guess a few comments I have is that first we have to, it's up to council if they accept that original budget, and then we have the service level enhancements for consideration. And then we also have the deferred capital items. We also have our external groups coming to meet with us about wage and salary questions that they didn't answer yet because it's not ready. I'm gonna, the things that I'll just throw them out there right now, that $7,000 can come out of the budget. Items that I've looked at, it's not a cut to salaries and wages, it's just a status quo to salaries and wages for 2024 because of that historical surplus in wages and salaries. And it's say the 45, sorry, I'm gonna give the accurate number somewhere. 47,778 increase to salaries and wages that could just be removed because we would stay static with 2023, and then the $7,000. I don't know, Amanda, if you have that calculator with you tonight, or like the graph that we usually use. Affect all the houses or residences if we have this much
Oh, no, I
money.
I haven't looked at the assessment.
What's the right name for it, just so I don't.
I don't know.
What do we call it? We should give it a name in the future.
But, like, I can easily calculate right now you'd be at a decrease from last year.
Yeah.
If those were all.
Yeah, with that 54,000, we would be at a decrease, but then we'd be at an advantage to start on the list of items that council would like to add. Because they go up quickly, and we saw with that 151,000 that I referred to in the operations, that was 4.1%. And so that's starting to really restrict where council can go with this. And I think we want to be as fair and, you know, provide that service level as much as possible. But I realistically am certainly not looking at a 4 or 5% increase. So that's me. That's only my opinion, and we'll carry on. If anybody else has any suggestions or thoughts right now, we'll start with Deputy Mayor again.
No, just continue.
Okay. Councilor McCoy?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Councilor Moore?
I would just like to ask Amanda, I don't believe that they've ever budgeted for a surplus in salaries and wages. I think it occurs from time to time because there is a position vacant or something like that. I don't like to start an operating budget discussion with talking about taking away from salaries and benefits because our staff is our most important resource. I would rather salaries and wages over 2023.
Okay. Councilor Williams?
I agree with Councilor Moore. I think when we're going to look at some, I think we got to look at council budget first. Making cuts.
Councilor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'm open to pretty much any suggestions that might be brought forward. I think that this is a really good start, and I think there are some adjustments. I'm most interested in the wish list and what's going to be added to the budget, because that's going to have the biggest impact on where our budget ends up and the increase in revenue from tax that's required.
Okay, and I just really also want to qualify, I'm not, and those are two areas that I could identify, and somehow we have to start the conversation about the budget. And I wasn't cutting anything, that was an addition to the 2024 budget, so I'm just suggesting that we remain at the 2023 level. So you can't cut something that wasn't there. And I certainly agree with all the comments about staff being our most valuable asset. But I know that nobody does budget anything for us, all the numbers, and I'm not going to throw them out there. And I gave the numbers that I felt were important, and I'm not by any means saying anything. And I'd also like to qualify that I'd like to see the grid first and the organizational structure to know what this is, you know, how I can respond to this $47,000 increase. And Amanda explained, I'm really not appreciating being called out for trying to undermine that, because I'm not. Budget discussions are budget discussions. So, anybody else has any ideas?
Is, not COLA, but because we have a grid and some people are not at the top of the grid, would that negatively impact those people who might be deserving of an increment?